It's time to strap in and get ready for the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Dan and Dirk are live in the studio today, ready to hear from you at 402-573-0590.
We were under a little bit of a rain delay there. We bit of apologize. So thank you for hanging out and waiting for us there. But just a few minutes late on getting everything figured out. Dirk Houston, Dan Taylor, the Front Stretch Radio Show brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Get over to Joe's today. Do yourself right with a little indoor kart racing. You better talk and make sure we can hear you. There we go.
They've got their Tuesday night slick series going on, so get over there and try that out if you want a different karting experience.
It is a really fun experience. I've got to do it a couple of times, and we went over there after one of the Tuesday night Quaker Steak and Lube recording sessions where we were sitting down talking with some drivers and doing a little bit of racing. It's a great time over at Joe's Karting, and it's not just for racers. It's a great experience for fans to kind of get an idea of what it's like to be a racer. You get like a hint of it. Just a hint of, and just enough to probably get you addicted and go out and buy a race car. But joeskarting.com for all pricing and information. You are going some pretty good speed, so typically you're going to need to have at least a driver's license. If it's a little bit younger, 14, 15-year-old, then they'll need to go through a training course. You'll have to set that up through Joe's Karting, but it's well worth the time, well worth the effort. A great time over at Joe's Karting. We are live down at Kansas Speedway, getting ready for today's Hollywood Casino 400, and we've had, as to be expected, another great weekend down at Kansas Speedway. Dirk, I think the first thing I want to talk about today, actually, let's back up just a little bit. Let's talk about Talladega and how I think they just finished wrecking again. We passed a hauler of crushed cars on the way down to Kansas City, and I said, "Oh, look, they're coming from Talladega." So that was a wreck fest, to say the least.
Yeah, and probably the best part of the wreck fest was Brendan Gaughan's interview.
Yeah.
After he did a roll and he started judging himself like he was a gymnast and everything, and told his mom that he was okay, it was just a flip, and I'm still racing Daytona. So
it's funny though. I know no matter how old you get or how many times he's been in an accident, he still wanted to let his mom know, I'm okay. But
and then the other part about that part is he was actually in the lead.
Yeah. When
he took his tumble. A team that races 4 races a year, has just 2 race cars, a driver that only runs the 4 races a year, and they were in the lead at Daytona or at Talladega. That's you don't comprehend that. That's not going to happen at too many other tracks.
That's kind of the beauty of Talladega and Daytona too. I mean, it can be anybody's game. There's so many different ways that you can strategize that race. You could play survivalist for all but the last 2 or 3 laps and see what happens. Brendan decided to play survivalist, and then he started to mix it up there and really go at it. And Brendan's not a bad restrictor plate racer. He's actually very good at it, and he's got plenty of experience.
Yeah, the experience is the big thing, and I don't know if he meant to get up and mix it up quite as early as he did, but I think he got stuck around 10th and a restart. Mm-hmm. And when you're towards the front, it's easier to go ahead and go to the front than it is to go to the back.
You might as well just keep going.
Right.
See what happens. And, as much as it stinks because he tore up some race car, not his fault. He tore up a race car. You got to go for it. There were so many different leaders. I'm looking through the stats for the post race. So many different leaders. And when I tuned in for the first time, they said, obviously on Monday because the race got delayed, and they said, "Oh, there's been so many lead changes and yada yada." I'm like, okay, well Talladega lead changes are like 900 times there's a lead change.
Restrictor plate tracks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But there was still some dominant drivers. Brad Keselowski led for 22 laps. I think Ricky Stenhouse led for the most at 32 laps. No, Ryan Blaney actually led the most, 3 different times, 35 laps. So there were some substantial lap leaders with an exciting race. I thought it was actually a very exciting race to listen to. I was sitting at work, didn't get to actually watch it since it was on Monday, but I think that it was actually a very exciting race. And you could really tell that there was drivers that were kind of sticking it out there because they like Brendan, they felt like they had a shot to win this race and punch their ticket into the next round and not have to worry about today at Kansas.
Right. And now you've got a handful of drivers that are way behind the 8 ball. I mean, there's an 18-point gap between in the playoffs and out of the playoffs right now. And now that we're talking about Kansas, some of those guys actually had trouble qualifying.
Yeah, they're having you're absolutely right. There's some guys that are on the cut line that Kansas is being very typical to them. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do today. We'll get you the starting lineup for today's race at Kansas, Phil Hollywood Casino 400 coming up in turn number 4. I forgot to mention as we got into the show, turn number 3, we're going to have William Byron driving the number 24 at Hendrick Motorsports. They'll be joining us on the show in turn number 3. And then turns 1 and 2, we're just kind of get you ready for Kansas. I think probably in turn 2, we're going to talk considerably about the race, the Xfinity race, the results thereof, the post-race fight, which...
the post-race wrestling match.
Yeah, it was a wrestling match. There wasn't a body slam. Like, who was that a couple of years ago in the Truck Series that body slammed the other driver to the ground?
No, it was Gallagher and...
Zaxby car.
The Zaxby car.
Yeah. And I can't think of off the top of my head. But it wasn't anything like that. This was Tyler Reddick and Cole Custer going at it. And we'll talk more about that coming up in turn number 2. But back to the point standings. After Talladega, let's look at the Talladega race results. Ryan Blaney picks up the win. He punches his ticket along with Kyle Larson into the round of 8. Doesn't have to worry about what's going on today. But like we talked about with Kyle Larson last weekend, if Blaney's got the opportunity to win a stage or go in and win the race, you better dang well believe he's going to stick his nose in there and find a way to do it, because it's all about the bonus points moving into the next round for him. Ryan Blaney picks up the win. Ryan Newman with a great solid second-place finish. By the way, what was it, 7/1000ths of a second that Blaney edged out Ryan Newman to pick up that win?
The third closest finishing margin ever, I think, is what they said.
Denny Hamlin with the third-place finish. Eric Almirola fourth. And Michael McDowell, top 5 finish. Austin Dillon, Corey LaJoie, Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Ty Dillon with your top 10 finishes.
And interesting part about some of that, when you think about Newman and Blaney and McDowell, they're all up front to start the race today here in Kansas. It's like it all carried over for them.
Bad days: Kyle Larson, Jimmy Johnson, Alex Bowman, Eric Jones, William Byron, Daniel Suarez, Matt DiBenedetto. That one hurt. I took Matty D. I thought I had him. I thought I had a good pick. Kurt Busch, Brendan Gaughan, like we talked about, 27th. All these guys outside the top 20. Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski. The good with the bad is that even with all these playoff contenders stuck outside the top 20, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Larson. Larson obviously taken out of the fold because he's on to the next round anyways. But with that many playoff contenders, all outside the top 20, the points damage that, say, Alex Bowman took for finishing 37th didn't hurt as bad because there were so many guys that only finished a couple of points in front of him.
Yep, that, we always know it's a crapshoot and a great equalizer when they go to this race, and it just proved out again.
Coming into today at Kansas, William Byron is the final car in the round in the field of 12, 27 points behind the cut line. Clint Boyer is 11th, 24 points behind the cut line. Chase Elliott is 10th, 22 points behind the cut line. And Alex Bowman is 9th, 18 points behind the cut line. Joey Logano is that final car that would make it into the next round, 18-point advantage over ninth place Alex Bowman. Then Brad Keselowski, 20-point advantage. Kevin Harvick, 36. Kyle Busch, 41 points. Martin Truex Jr., 48 points. And Denny Hamlin, 56 points above the cut line. None of those drivers are 100% safe. Now, Denny Hamlin, 56-point advantage. It'd have to be catastrophe on top of Alex Bowman having a solid day. In fact, a flawless day in order for Denny Hamlin to get eliminated.
Well, yeah. I mean, if Denny Hamlin finishes 5th or better in either stage, he's moving on.
He's in it, absolutely, because you got to get to 60 points above the cut line, and he's at 56. So that those 5 points that he would get for finishing 5th or better in that stage would lock him into the next round. Martin Truex Jr., 48 points above. Kyle Busch, 41 points above. I think the story that a lot of people are going to pay attention to is Kevin Harvick. Had issues in tech inspection, and depending on which news source you go through, Kevin Harvick failed, that 4-car failed tech inspection 4 times. Another news source says 3 times. The 4 team says they failed 1 time and opted to not go through a second time, thus disqualifying them from tech inspection. Their story is that while they came back and made repairs or made changes to the car after failing tech inspection the first time, they found that on qualifying ride height, the car was dragging. And in order to make that change, they basically just said, we got to make that change or else we're going to have trouble Sunday during the race, and we don't have time to make it and get out there for qualifying, so we're just going to skip qualifying. But NASCAR doesn't eject your car chief for failing inspection once and then opting to not qualify, to my understanding. You have to fail tech inspection, pre-qualifying inspection, I believe, is it 3 times or is it 4 times in order to lose your car chief?
Well, I think you lose your car chief after the second.
Okay.
But I think there's got to be some repercussion on this, or teams would, we're just not going to qualify this
right.
week.
I think it's something that I'm not necessarily sure that Kevin did, that the 4 team did anything like, how am I trying to word this? I don't think they did anything on his strategy of like, well, we're going to act like there's something wrong with the car and then not go out for qualifying. Because at Kansas, qualifying is important, especially if you need to start a little bit farther up in order to ensure you're moving on to the next round.
Well, there's enough time in this race, and I don't recall who did it. I don't remember if it was May or last October. Somebody started towards the back and was in the top 10 at the end of the first stage. So
I think that was Kyle Busch. We were discussing that, and he finished outside the top 10, but it was like 11th or 12th. He was right there.
But, I mean, you get a caution or two. You pass 10 or 12 cars, get a caution, you bunch back up. You pass 10 or 12 more. You get a caution, you bunch back up. You get a pit stop and stop. Next thing you know, you're up front. So I don't see that part as a big deterrence, at this. Now, if this was like Martinsville, where the leaders are in lap traffic in 15 laps, that's a whole different ball game. But the big track like this, I don't see that as a deterrent. But like I had told you yesterday, I was walking through the garage, and they were getting ready to start qualifying, and I saw Harvick's car on jack stands in the garage, but I went over and asked somebody what was going on, and they just kind of looked at me like, what are you, stupid?
We're not telling you. So anyways, Kevin Harvick, 36 points above the cut line. It's comfortable, but it's not a guarantee. We've seen this how many times at Kansas, with it being the elimination race. When those gremlins decide to creep up, they're going to do it at an elimination race. Maybe this is the race that engine just all of a sudden decides to let go. They just had a bad part in it, and it cuts loose and lets go, and all of a sudden Kevin Harvick is not moving on to the round of 8, and his championship hopes are done. Alex Bowman's moving on, or maybe it's Clint Boyer or something like that. But this is, even though they've got a 36-point advantage, it's nothing to feel fine about. There's still a little bit of stress in that 4 team of, boy, we got to be careful of what could happen.
Yeah, but like I said, it's still, the 36 points he's got is, who was it that was in 8th place? Alex Bowman?
Yeah.
Or the first car out was Alex Bowman?
First car, yeah, I think he's 9th.
So, I mean, that's the car that has to beat Kevin Harvick by 36 points.
Right.
I mean, you go further back, and William Byron can't knock him out. He doesn't have enough room. Clint Boyer can knock him out. What was he, 22 points?
24.
24.
Boyer's 24. Elliott's 22.
Boyer can't knock him out either, because Harvick's going to score 1 point for starting the race.
Yeah.
And if Boyer swept and got 60, Harvick could still beat him by 1 point. So there's only 2 cars, basically, that he's got to worry about. And then if either one of them has trouble, then he doesn't have to worry about anything.
I want to send a shout-out to our buddy Donald Crouch, heading down south, leaving home, and coming to his first, not his first NASCAR race, but his wife Nikki's first NASCAR race. So they're coming down to Kansas Speedway for today's Hollywood Casino 400. I was on KansasSpeedway.com looking through the tickets, and I got to tell you, Years past, I would tell you to come down and buy the cheapest seat and then go sit anywhere you wanted to. While there are still seats available, there is a whole lot of grayed out areas that there are not tickets available in big sections. KansasSpeedway.com, you can select your own ticket, you can select your own seat. And when you thumb through some of those areas, there's seats of 2, 3, maybe 4 together, but they're very, very sporadic in each one of the sections. I think today's race is actually going to be one of the bigger attended races we're going to see in a long time.
You can bring yourself a soft cooler. I think they like 14 or 15-inch cooler is what they allow. Just no glass. Bring your own adult beverage if you would prefer. You can bring water, whatever. Throw yourself a sandwich in there so you don't have to buy the concessions at the track, you know. Today's going to be a little bit of hoodie weather because you're going to be in the shade most of the time in the grandstand. If you get up towards turn 4, you might be able to find some sun. But the rest of the grandstand will probably be in the shade with the scoring tower and everything like that. Supposed to be, low 60s, I think, today?
Yeah, we're looking at a high of about 65, and that's going to happen at about 5 o'clock.
So, low 60s during the race. So, bring yourself a hoodie or a light jacket to be comfortable and enjoy the racing.
Speaking of cold, I just got a nice cold shiver with the air conditioner behind us kicking on. Got to keep the air circulating in this room so it gets a little chilly during the show. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back in turn number 2. We're going to get you set for today's race. We're going to talk about yesterday's Xfinity Series race, the Kansas Lottery 300. Boy, that was a fun race. What an amazing race, and an exciting end to it, by the way, too, with the little scuffle between Cole Custer and Tyler Reddick. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back in turn number 2 on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole of the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Located on Mid-America Drive in Council Bluffs.
Dan and Dirk are rolling into turn 2 with a little attitude on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Rolling into turn number 2. Brought to you by Kansas Speedway. The last opportunity to see NASCAR in this area is happening in just over 5 hours. 5.5 hours until the Hollywood Casino 400 kicks off at Kansas Speedway. You can still get your tickets online, KansasSpeedway.com. Just click on the tickets section right underneath the counter, right next to the counter, and you can select from the seats, or you can put in your price range, and you can have them pick your seats too. Really cool, simple seating grid that you can see exactly where your tickets are at and where you're going to be sitting. I talked about it during the Facebook Live video. I've sat over in the high side of turn 4. I mean, let me tell you, I took a walk because we parked over by turn 1 in the parking lot, and our tickets were over into turn 4. It's a long walk. It doesn't look like that far of a walk when you're when you're watching on TV, but when you're hitting every one of them steps, it's a long walk. Anyways,
kind of like our walk yesterday when we went to get to leave.
We had to walk anyways. Nothing like what it is at the super speedways, but it's still a bit of a trek. But sitting on the high side of turn number 4, all the way up in the top near the elevators. Beautiful view over there. Like Dirk said, if you're on the colder side, sit over in that area. When the sun comes out, that's going to really warm you up. And it was really amazing how much of a different day it was yesterday, Dirk, because when we got to the racetrack, it had just finished raining, so they were working on track drying conditions. Cloudy as all get out. But then as the race started, the clouds started to dissipate a little bit, and then as the race went on, eventually we got to the end of the day where it was nice and sunny, and it was a totally different day when you were sitting in the sun versus in the shade.
That was the vortex effect, all that heat raising from the cars going around in a circle and clear the sky.
I 100% believe in the vortex effect, and I'm not entirely sure if you're not mocking me, but Oh well, and I'm gonna have to double check here, but there is an opportunity of some rain later tonight. Looking at the hourly forecast for Kansas City, Kansas, looks like there's a 55% chance of rain at 8 o'clock, 40% chance of rain at 7 o'clock. With this race getting kicked off at about 2:13 is when they're set to throw the green flag for today's race. We shouldn't have any issues getting it done by about 6 o'clock, maybe 6:30. But if NASCAR feels like that this cell may be moving forward and picking up speed, they may move up the start time for today's race. But it would be 30 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, usually a little bit less than that because they have some restrictions when it comes to network time.
Yeah, they've got a time slot, so to speak, where if they move it up, the most they can move it up is to when the pre-race starts.
Right. They can just skip right through the pre-race and go right into the invocation because they want to make sure.
They can do all the pre-race not on TV.
Correct. Absolutely. So there is that slight chance, but we should stay dry today, especially at the racetrack, but it's going to be a great day. KansasSpeedway.com. Got to say a big thank you to those guys for sponsoring for sponsoring the Fred Stretch for so many years and being such great partners with us. Yesterday's race, the Xfinity Series race, we talked about it. We actually talked about it at the end of the William Byron interview that we talked to him on Thursday, but I ended up cutting it out because I wanted to talk about it more live, especially after what happened yesterday. You've talked about it. I've experienced it with being an announcer at dirt racing for years. There's a couple of things that dirt racing is TV proof. That if you watch a football game, I think your experience watching an NFL game is actually better than when you're watching it on TV than you are at the game. Now, you get the live experience, but you don't get the commentary and the news, the inside stories, the what's going on, the play-by-plays, that kind of stuff. And you get a much better view on TV, by the way, than when you're sitting in the stadium. For races, for NASCAR races especially, and what we experienced in May, and we've experienced it a couple of times at the tracks, TV has to focus on the lead cars, or maybe one of the battles in the top 5. There are so many battles throughout the entire field that if you sit at the racetrack and you watch this, your head's going to spin. You're going to be watching so many battles on the racetrack because I think we're in a nice little Goldilocks zone where this racetrack at Kansas Speedway is incredibly racy for these guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, there was, 2, 3, 4 lines in the turns yesterday, so I don't see why that would change today.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that's at the track is going to be able to watch Kevin Harvick come from 40th. That's going to be worth the price of admission.
Absolutely, that is going to be worth the price of admission, which, by the way, is considerably less for kids under 12 years old. I believe $29. Kids get into today's race for just $29. I remember when I came and sat up in that turn 4.
Buy me a ticket, Dad.
When I came as a fan with my sister and some friends, that was back when you would buy them as a package. You bought a season package, you got the IndyCar races, you got all the tickets, and there was a woman that had probably a 6-month to 8-month-old child with her in the concourse, and she paid full freight for that kid to be there. $129 for that ticket. And I was just amazed at that. You don't have to pay that today. NASCAR's got some great deals for kids to come into the races. Just $29. Adult tickets, I think I saw them anywhere from $69 to $79, on up to $149 if you want the really good tickets. But it's well worth the price of admission today. It's going to be an absolutely gorgeous day. It's going to be great to watch Harvick come through the field. And I think there's going to be some amazing passing, some great racing action for today's Cup Series race.
Yep. Go ahead and if it's your first experience, rent yourself a radio.
Oh, yes.
And you can listen to the crew chief driver chatter back and forth. I think some of them, they've got pre-programmed, so you just push a button, correct?
Yeah, like mine. We did a Facebook Live video where we walked through the Cup garage. I think probably about 15 minutes into that video, I pulled out my Racing Electronics radio, and I actually programmed it right there. It's a couple of buttons. It's really simple. I bought mine several years ago when I was going to Iowa on a regular basis as a fan, and I wanted to be able. You have to have those radios to be able to hear what's going on. to kind of keep up to date and to be able to listen to MRN, and then when something happens, you can pop over to one of the drivers' channels, or you can listen to your driver's channels as the spotter, crew chief, and the driver are communicating back and forth. It helps you keep up to date with their strategy and what's going on. And it's really, really simple. The racing electronics radios, you just go and you're programming over the air. It takes about 5 minutes, and then you've got the car channel. So instead of typing in like frequency 454 point whatever, you're typing in the car number. So I want to listen to Clint Boyer. I just type in car number 14, and then Clint's radio pops up. I want to listen to the MRN broadcast. It's car 69. I want to listen to the NBC broadcast. I believe it's car 58. So it's each one of the channels. It's a no-brainer once you get it for the first time, and they're well worth the price. And the great thing that we've been told, and I've actually saw it yesterday as I was walking out of the Speedway, we were looking at the pricing. The pricing for these radios has dropped considerably since NASCAR has acquired the Racing Electronics Company. That was one of their big initiatives, that they wanted to bring that pricing range back down a little bit so that everyday fans could really afford to have that.
Yeah, I mean, the only bad part about NASCAR acquiring is it's going to get to the point where NASCAR's got a monopoly on this deal, and that isn't. I don't know if that's going to be good or not. It might turn out to be fantastic.
Yeah, it could be a very good thing. It could be a bad thing.
But in most businesses, monopoly is bad.
Yesterday's Xfinity Series race, Brandon Jones picked up his first ever Xfinity Series win. Tyler Reddick came home second, Chase Briscoe in third, Michael Annett in fourth, and Justin Allgaier in fifth. Reddick, Briscoe, and Cole Custer were just going at it those last 30 laps. And, I mean, they were dealing with lap traffic. They were moving high. They were going low. They were leaning on each other a little bit. And Cole Custer felt like he got leaned on a little bit too hard by Tyler Reddick. If I saw the replay correctly, we saw the one coming off turn 4 during one of those restarts. And I don't think Reddick actually touched Cole Custer. I think Custer broke loose and tapped the wall all on his own, but he felt like Reddick got him.
No, that angle they showed coming down the backstretch, it was actually coming out of turn 2. Mm-hmm. That angle was after the contact.
Okay.
And Tyler Reddick said, he goes, I wasn't going to lift.
Yeah.
You know,
we don't have to, we keep going over this stuff. You're on the verge of being eliminated. For the Xfinity Series, this was race number 1 of their round. And everybody wanted to get what they could. When you're Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe and Cole Custer, you've got an opportunity to punch your ticket to the next round. You're not going to say, okay, you know what, I'll settle for second. I'll settle for third. We'll be okay. No need to really push it today. You got to go for it.
Well, if it was lap 100, he probably would have lifted.
Right.
But not at lap 180 or thereabouts. I don't remember the exact lap. But it was towards the end of the race. He wasn't going to lift at that point.
Completely agree.
And, and then Custer ended up, with a wiggle, banged the wall a little bit, and lost a few. It cost him a few spots. There's no denying that. But I don't really think by watching the replay of the tussle that Cole Custer went over to fight. He put his arm on his shoulder like he was going to talk to him, and Tyler took offense to that.
Yeah, and Tyler said it. He goes, I was fine with talking to him until he put his hand. The way he put his hand on my shoulder, I was done. And they both locked hands, and it was kind of like when we were watching the wrestling last night.
Pro wrestling from Japan.
Because they just locked up and then started pushing, and then all the people got involved. And I mean,
everybody got involved except the NASCAR officials.
Right. They weren't going to break it up. But, yeah, I mean, take that out of it, because people can easily say, well, there was a fight, so obviously that was a great race yesterday. I mean, we had the unique ability to go sit down with Chris from Quaker Steak and Lube, Chris Morris, who owns Quaker Steak, his wife, and a couple of their friends. And I eventually found myself on top of their RV because we couldn't get the dish satellite to work, and I wanted to watch the race while I was at the race. But just sitting up there and watching that, man, I mean, it was, you could just see how on edge these guys were going through the corners, but they were trying so hard to find that tenth, that half a tenth to get that advantage off the corner. And it was just such an awesome race yesterday. And I'm as if I wasn't excited enough for today's Hollywood Casino 400 after yesterday. I think it's overflowing now. My excitement overfloweth. But a great race in the Xfinity Series. Congratulations to Brandon Jones picking up his first Xfinity Series win. I was shocked to hear that, because he's been a dominant factor in the Truck Series, and then as he moved into the Xfinity Series, I kind of lost touch and stopped paying attention to the series as much as I should. And I figured he'd had a couple of wins by now.
Well, he's had 134 Xfinity Series starts, so that's like 4 full seasons. So it's not like, it's his first time at the track. I just can you look up real quick how many top fives does he have?
I don't have that. I could pull it up if you talk for a little bit. I could probably pull it up.
Because I really don't think he's got that many top fives. He's been up front early in some races, but he usually ends up in some type of trouble.
Do you want Xfinity Series?
Yeah, that's all I'm worried about.
48 top 10s, 2 poles, 1 win. Kansas Lottery.
So it
doesn't even list any top 5s, which is odd. Because it says he has 21 top 10s in the Truck Series. No wins, no poles. Anyways, doesn't he have wins in the Truck Series? I thought he picked up a win or two.
He might have, but
it's tough to keep track of these guys sometimes. But anyways, you can see all the action today for the Hollywood Casino 400. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back in turn number 3. We're going to sit down with William Byron, driver of the number 24 at Hendrick Motorsports. We're going to talk to him about his strategy for today, his what it was like when they gave him the call that he was going to be racing for Hendrick Motorsports. Dirk, you had a great question with that. We'll go back in time with him on that, and we'll talk to him about so much more. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on the front stretch.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole of the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Located on Mid-America Drive in Council Bluffs.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 3, and it's time to talk with one of the drivers that is going to be contending for that final playoff position in today's race of the Hollywood Casino 400. By the way, today's race brought to you by KansasSpeedway.com. No more calling 866-460-RACE. Just show up to the ticket office, and you can get in to watch today's elimination race, the Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway. Once again, KansasSpeedway.com for tickets and information, but just show up in person. You're going to have a great time today, and there is still plenty of time to get down to the Speedway for today's Hollywood Casino 400. Joining us on the show now, the Hendrick Motorsports driver of the number 24 UniFirst Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. That's William Byron. Welcome, and thanks for coming on the show, William.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You've got quite the hill to climb today, sitting back in the 12th spot, 27 points behind. As much as you would love to say this is a strategy thing, I think it's pretty easy for you guys. You're just going to have to go out there and win today's race.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of on the forefront of our minds, going out there and shooting for the win. I think we have a great car to do it, and really have the speed to do it. So it's going to take a smooth race, good execution all around, and we can kind of put ourselves in the top 5 late in the race. I think we'll have a great shot.
You've got a pretty good career behind you. You've obviously shown the talent. This is why you're in the 24 car.
Yeah.
And
I see you.
You're not wrecking your hauler right now, are you?
Or catching it on fire.
No, sorry. I just saw somebody.
There's been enough hauler damage done this weekend as everyone's getting to Kansas, so let's just keep everything safe. Anyways, like I was saying, it's in Kansas. Can you take what you guys were able to do back in May at Kansas? I mean, obviously a different time, and it's going to be different conditions. Were you able to learn anything from that May race? Can you take anything from it, or do you think it's going to be a clean slate coming into Sunday's race?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be kind of similar because I think the weather conditions are going to be pretty cool this weekend, and And I think, honestly, it's going to make for a similar race and similar style of racing. So I think the groove of the racetrack is kind of very similar at Kansas always. You've got the bottom. The bottom's really dominant at the beginning of a run, then the top comes in really well and really quickly after a few laps. So I think you're going to see those two lanes really work super well to make passes.
Are you going to go up and go straight to the front? I mean, with as far back as you are, yeah, I think you need to try and just sweep the whole day, get both stages and the win if possible. And that way, I mean, if you sweep the stages, you got a big jump start on the hole you're in. Is that how you're looking at it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at it, I think even if we scored max points in the day, I think it's going to be far-fetched for us to get in on points. So we just got to win the race. You know, we're going to go after an aggressive strategy, an aggressive approach to the race, and go after the win. And if we can get the win, that's the easiest way to punch our ticket. So you know, we can't really rely on others having bad days, and really looking at Logano being in that 8th spot. You know, he's going to be a tough guy to leapfrog and point. You know, he's probably going to score, you know, top 5 or 10 stage point. You know, then he's going to get a race finish that's probably in the top 10. So that's going to be about 40 points. So it's going to be tough to leapfrog him in points, but I think that ultimately if we go out there and win, it's going to solve everything.
It's going to be an all-hands-on deck for the Hendrick Motorsports crew. Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and yourself all facing elimination as you guys are behind the cut line for today's race at the Hollywood Casino 400. I imagine you guys have been working pretty diligently the last week to kind of figure out what Alex did so well last time, what Chase is doing so well, but the tough thing about racing is that they can give you all the tips in the world, or you can give them the tips in the world, but inevitably it comes down to you and your driving style to be able to get around Kansas Speedway.
Oh, absolutely. I think it takes a team effort at Kansas. I think the track's really smooth, got a lot of grip, you know, but it also falls away from you pretty quick, and the car can get away from you pretty quick there. So you got to be on top of your game. Got to be good at controlling a loose race car there, and I think that if you put all those things together, you can have a great shot at a really good finish.
I got one quick question for you. I want to step back about 2 years. What went through your mind when you were offered the ride in that 24? You know, that Jeff Gordon, you know, made famous.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, first off, I got the phone call to drive for Hendrick in the Cup Series, and that was a big deal in itself. But then on top of that, you know, to then get a phone call about, hey, you know, we want you to drive the 24. That was really special. So, you know, I've had a really good connection with Jeff, and, you know, getting to know him and obviously driving the 24, you know, he wants that car to do well. He wants to see it lead laps and win races, and we're working towards that. I think we're getting closer for sure, and, you know, it's just great to have his support. Was there any thoughts of saying, you know, thanks, but I'll take the 23 or the 25? I don't need the pressure of the 24. Yeah, it wasn't really an option wasn't an option. You know, but I think that, you know, I welcome it, and it's never been something that's kind of weighed on my mind of being, you know, not living up to it or anything like that. I think it just, you know, I'm on my own path and on my own journey to success, and I think that, you know, I think that that's kind of going to take care of itself, I guess. When it's our time, it's going to be our time. So I don't look at it as pressure. I think it's just going to be that much more rewarding and that much sweeter when something good, really good does happen. And it's been cool this year, you know, when we got the pull at the Roval, seeing Jeff, you know, on our pit box and how excited he was. It was really cool. This weekend at Kansas, you've got the UniFirst company on the side of the car for the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. Talk a little bit about UniFirst, what they do, and how that came about. Yeah, UniFirst is a uniform company. They're based out of New Hampshire. They do a great job. They supply all the uniforms actually for the guys at our race shop and do a great job there. So national company, and proud to have them on the car again this weekend for Kansas, and hopefully we can get them a win. We were really close to the Roval, so it would be nice to get a win for them. This would be nice ones for us to finally get some formal front stretch shirts and jerseys. I'm looking on their website. They've got some nice stuff here. That's right. William Byron, driver of the number 24 at Hendrick Motorsports. Once again, he's going to be competing in today's Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway. Make sure you get your tickets at the ticket window. You can get in your car, head south. It's only 2.5 hours to the south. You'll get there in just plenty of time for today's Hollywood Casino 400. William, we really appreciate your time on the show. We really look forward to seeing you in Victory Lane. That way we can talk to you maybe next week or the following week about how you're going to move on to the Championship 4. That's right. That's the goal for sure. I think, you know, hopefully we can win and get ourselves that automatic bid to the next round. That'd be awesome. Now let's see Jeff Gordon all excited in Victory Lane when you park it there. That's right. Thanks, William. Best of luck today, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Once again, that was William Byron getting ready for today's race at the Hollywood Casino 400. We talked to him earlier this week, so make sure to go to NASCAR.com and you can find out how he qualified for today's race. But we're going to get you set for how everything's going coming up in turn number 4 and how he's looking, how Alex Bowman's looking, along with their teammate Chase Elliott. There's some big heavy hitters that could possibly be eliminated today at Kansas if it's kind of a not really a shake and bake race. If it stays pretty even keel, Logano would get that final ticket into the next round. Bowman, Elliott, Boyer, and Byron could all get eliminated today.
Well, yeah, I want to go back, and I will go back before Sunday and look and see when was the last time that there wasn't a Hendrick car in the Final 8, because that could very well happen this week.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back live in turn number 4 on the front stretch.
Have you ever watched NASCAR, dirt track, or IndyCar and thought, I could do that? Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs is the place to put your money where your mouth is. Races fire off every 10 minutes, so what are you waiting for? Get to Joe's Karting on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs, next to the Mid-America Center, and find out how easy it is to drive a race car. Each Joe's Karting car is powered by an eco-friendly Honda engine capable of a 14-second lap. That's if you're as good as you think.
Dan and Dirk are live for one last corner. Give them a call now at 402-573-0590.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Once again, thanks for tuning in for today's show. I want to say a big thank you to Quaker Steak and Lube for presenting turn number 4 on the front stretch. And thanks to Kansas Speedway for sponsoring us for the last couple of weeks, getting ready for the Hollywood Casino 400. Coming up this Tuesday night at Quaker Steak and Lube, we're back at it with more live interviews. We're going to be featuring drivers from the Nebraska 360 Sprint Series. Right now, looking like we've got Jack Dover confirmed right at 6 o'clock. John Clabundi will come in at 6:30, and series champion Jason Martin will stop by at 7 o'clock. Still waiting on confirmation from Shaylee Bade, Ryan Roberts, Stu Snyder. Cody Ledger not able to make it. He's got work that day, so he's not able to make it down. But we're just going to basically go down to Quaker Steak and Lube like we've been doing for the last couple of weeks and set up our broadcast equipment, record a bunch of interviews, and have a good time. It's all-you-can-eat wings night, and we might throw out one of those free hats if you do the Triple Atomic Challenge at Quaker Steak and Lube.
Well, I do believe that Shaylee Bade is now a Mrs.
She is. Was that today? Was that
yesterday?
They get married yesterday? Okay.
And so, I mean, I would.
You think she's on a honeymoon?
Well, I thought she'd been on a honeymoon for like the last couple of years, but
that's true.
I think it's the official one now.
We'll get confirmation on when those drivers can come down. Always like the Front Stretch Facebook page, and we've got an event page set up with a schedule and confirmations, pictures, and all sorts of great stuff. Get down to Quaker Steak and Lube. Starts at 6 o'clock this coming Tuesday night, and typically record till about 9 o'clock or until our interviews are wrapped up. And once we get through, maybe it's not a regular Nebraska 360 driver, we'll invite a couple of other drivers down. Maybe this will be the week that we get Billy Lloyd. He's got some time. He can come down and sit down with us to talk about his time on the flag stand at Eagle Raceway and all the different tracks and series that he's flagged for. So live interview opportunities. You can meet and greet with Dirk and I. You can get some Front Stretch hats, get one of those hand-drawn maps that we have.
And Dan's always got his Sharpie for autographs, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's what you want. This Tuesday night at Quaker Steak and Lube, 6 o'clock. Don't forget, all-you-can-eat wings coming up on Tuesday night.
Yeah, but stepping back just a few words here.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats to Chris and Shaylee.
Oh, yes, very much so. Absolutely. Today, I talked about when we were talking with William Byron about the qualifying results. So we were a little bit perplexed when we saw the schedule for today because all the practices were set for Friday. Well, and then they qualified on Saturday.
This race has had the history of qualifying on Friday and having happy hour right before the Xfinity race on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And so when we saw the schedule, it was like, wow, they really switched it up. And we still don't know why.
Right.
But happy hour was like at 6:30.
Mm-hmm. And guess who led Friday. Happy hour on Friday?
Well,
So as we were leaving the racetrack, we looked up at the scoring pylon, and you said, well, I wonder if the conditions tomorrow during qualifying will be anything like tonight, because Daniel Hemrick happened to lead the happy hour practice with a great speed, and he happens to gain the pole award for today's race. To a lot of people's surprise, he went out there and ripped a great lap, but then David Reagan kind of stole the spotlight. He's going to line up outside row number 1 in that 38 car. So just two guys that you don't typically see up front are going to lead this field to green in a little under 5 hours.
Well, Hemrick's had several top 10 starts.
Mm-hmm.
He's been up front. Reagan's usually not. A good start for Reagan is, roughly 14th to 20th, He's not usually, behind 25th or anything like that. But Hemrick's had, I think several starts. I think a couple in the top 5, and he's had a couple in the last 5.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been all over the board. But we were perplexed as to why they had happy hours so late, and what would you gain from that? Well, evidently they found something.
Hemrick and that 18 absolutely found something. Row number 1, like I said, Hemrick and Reagan going to be lining up, and then row number 2 will be Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski. Kyle Larson and Michael McDowell will line up row number 3. Ryan Newman, Daniel Suarez, row 4, and Austin Dillon, Bubba Wallace, row number 10.
Very unique.
Row number 5.
Very unique top 10 at this race with some of those names that were in there. You really only have a couple names that you'd expect to be in there.
Yeah, 3 playoff contenders qualified in the top in the first 10 starting positions. Blaney, Keselowski, and Larson. Obviously, Blaney and Larson already punched into the next round, so Keselowski's feeling pretty good. He's got a teammate lining up next to him, starting 4th. He is the best of the playoff contenders that isn't locked into the next round. Martin Truex Jr. qualified 11th, Chase Elliott 14th, Alex Bowman 16th, Kyle Busch 18th, Clint Bowyer 21st, Denny Hamlin 23rd, William Byron 25th, Joey Logano 29th, and as we talked about at the beginning of the show, Kevin Harvick will qualify 40th. Full field for today, by the way. Something we haven't seen for a few years.
Well, a few years here. I mean, we've seen it a couple times at some
Correct.
other tracks, but at this track, it's gonna be a good day for racing. I mean, we're sitting there looking. The sun's out right now. It is brisk this morning. It's in mid-40s right now, but it's supposed to warm up. Like we talked earlier, into the low 60s. Sun's going to be shining. Might not be the best race day for your adult beverages. You might want maybe a cup of hot chocolate
and some
today.
peppermint schnapps. That would go a long ways.
But it's going to be a great day for racing.
And as I said, we haven't seen a full field in a while, and you're right. I meant Kansas. Turns out in May we had a full field, and turns out the October race, this race last year, we had a full field. So
yeah, but they cheated. They added those cars after the race.
Speaking of this race, earlier this year, this was one of our favorite races. I mean, we just ripped and raved about how great this race was because of the action on the track. There were so many passing opportunities. Nobody really had a lockdown advantage. We've seen it with it being out on the Great Plains that the arrow is the advantage at this racetrack. It's all about getting the lead off turn number 2, and then the leader will check out from there with about 2, 3, maybe a 4-second advantage, and then maybe it starts to get drawn back in as the green flag run goes on. We didn't see that. We saw maybe a second advantage for Brad Keselowski at different times and the leaders at different times, but then the second place and third place would start reeling it back in. It was a great race last May, and we were both kind of talking. I think you were the one that brought it up first, said it'd be interesting to see what the October race does because it's going to be a completely different environment. With that sun being out, it changes the track condition enough to where it could throw them for an oddball, and we didn't really know what to expect when we got here. Yesterday's race makes me feel a little bit better that we're going to see something more like May again.
Well, all the drivers, ARCA, Xfinity, and Cup, all struggled on Friday because it was windy. I mean, there were guys, and that's what they said. They got blown into the wall.
The front stretch mobile struggled on Friday.
It was very windy down here yesterday. Didn't have that issue, and I don't think they're scheduling that today. I don't think I haven't seen the weather people talk about any type of big breezes come. Because believe it or not, even at 180 miles an hour, that'll mess the car a little bit.
We're looking at wind gusts of 11 to 13, maybe 14 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, it was a steady 15 to 20 on Friday.
It was insane. That win driving down was just nuts. Brad Keselowski ended up picking up the win in May. Alex Bowman came home second, Eric Jones in third, Chase Elliott in fourth, and Clint Boyer in fifth. Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, and Chris Buescher, your top 10 finishers. Playoff contenders that finished outside the top 20. Ryan Blaney finished 32nd. Kyle Busch finished 30th. And Kyle Busch continues to be a feast or famine at Kansas Speedway. He went on a run there where he literally could not get out of his own way. He would spin all on his own, could not get this track figured out, and then he came back the next time and won it, 2-3 times in a row?
Yeah.
And now he went back to a 30th place finish. Looked like he was running. He was 2 laps down, but Kyle Busch finished 30th on the day. He was one of the other playoff contenders that was outside of the top 20.
Yeah, and in that race, he got caught. He'd made a pit stop and went a lap down right at the beginning of the cycle, and then the yellow came out and trapped a whole bunch of drivers a lap down. So that's when he got behind the 8 ball, and then I think he got in a tussle on the track with somebody on one of the restarts late.
No.
Did some bouncing around.
No.
But I don't know about today. If anybody gets close to him and sees the back of his helmet, they might just stay away.
That helmet is amazing. I want John Sproner to make me something like that, but I have no use for a helmet. The ship sailed.
Well, you keep talking about shaving your head.
Yeah.
Why don't you just have him do the back of your head like that?
That's a good idea. That's a great idea. Kevin Harvick led the most laps last in May. He led 5 different times for 104 laps. Alex Bowman led 3 different times, 63 total laps, and Chase Elliott led 5 times for 45 laps. Brad Keselowski, race winner, ended up only leading 12 laps, along with Clint Boyer leading 12 laps. Quite a few different lap leaders in May, and it's substantial lap leaders. I mean, we had 3 people that obviously came in and led a lap during green flag stops, but other than that, you had quite a few lap leaders for 5, 10, 15, 45, 60 laps.
Well, once you get on the different pit cycles, you'll get that. You know, you get a guy that pits on an early yellow and, ends up where he's got another 15 laps worth of gas. When they start cycling green stops, he'll stay out there. So, yeah, you can get real odd lap leader counts at this track.
This race last year, Chase Elliott picked up the race win after leading 44 laps. Kyle Busch came home second, Kyle Larson in third, Eric Jones in fourth, Martin Truex Jr. in fifth. Keselowski, Blaney, Logano, Bowman, and Almirola, your top 10. Big lap leader of the day was Joey Logano, led 3 times for 100 laps. Like I mentioned, Joey ended up finishing 8th on the day. He won stage number 1. Kevin Harvick won stage number 2. Harvick ended up finishing 12th on the day. KansasSpeedway.com for tickets and information. We can't say it enough. Get on down to Kansas Speedway. I think I really do feel very confident this is going to be a great race today. You're going to have a great time, but you got to get in the car now because you're going to get down at about 11:30. That's going to give you just enough time to get in, get your tickets, get through the concourse. Go and see all the festivities. Go see the Monster Energy exhibits. Go see the new car displays. Go see all this fun stuff.
And according to my brother who came down Friday, he wandered the concourse yesterday in the rain, but evidently there are some exceptional buys on hats and tees.
No kidding. And to that point, there's all the merchandise available for all your favorite drivers. Get on down here, KansasSpeedway.com. Got to say a big thank you to Kansas Speedway for presenting the racing, or for sponsoring the show for the last couple of weeks. And get your tickets for the Hollywood Casino 400. Thanks to Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Today's race is on NBC and MRN. I believe coverage should start at 1:30 today. I believe the green flag set to wave at 2:30. To be safe, get your picks in by 1 o'clock. I can't remember the exact time that all the picks are due today. All my notes are sitting back in Omaha, so I apologize for that. But get your picks in on time for both of the Quaker Steak and Lube contest and the season-long contest. We're going to be at Quaker Steak and Lube on Tuesday night. Make sure you join us. Thank you to Gus back at the station for putting up with my 18 phone calls, a couple of text messages, and my crankiness as we were trying to get connected this morning.
Little technical difficulty.
Thank you, Gus. You are a lifesaver, and you are the best engineer in radio ever. Thank you so much. We'll be back again next weekend with more of the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.